Some people are saying again today that they really miss the silence that used to be here. And a person even asked, is our need or degree of demand getting higher, or is our degree of comprehension and tolerance that is lower? Both things mixed. Planet Earth is the planet of mixture. So everything is mixed here. And we need to learn how to deal with it, because it's a way of taking everything towards unity. In the beginning, when we are in the path, we need to separate things very well. This is good, that is bad. This is the beginning of the path, and this is for those who begin. But then later on, life will take those people to understand and transform that which is the opposite to them. So a work of unifying begins, and in the beginning we understand it as a mixture. We understand it as something that is becoming mixed, as there are some people who are saying that really silence is lower, that there's a lot of conversation, a lot of useful, not useless things, and they do not find the inner Figueira that before those who came to Figueira would find it, because before there used to be a more formal discipline. There was a lot of effort towards external movements, external rhythms, external order from a silent point of view, then to, I wouldn't say noise, but to sounds. So that was a stage. What we need to see is how we are making this transition, because the goal of evolution is not for people to remain contained and wrong within. The goal of evolution is for people to solve themselves in an evolutionary and positive way. Those who in the beginning managed to align, to make their inner connections, today they should have the possibility that being among others through their own connection help them to make this connection. I'm talking about those who haven't done it yet. They're still in that conflict and noise. So those who achieved it during so many years of training here, they should be the guardians of harmony, of balance. The difference is that before there used to be silence, but a lot of people contained. And today we're trying to make a transition so that everyone is in harmony, speaking when they need to, listening when they need to, shutting when they don't have anything to say. So we would have to get there, and then we would be more balanced and harmonized. We know that this is a learning experience, because this is not a perfect planet. We are far from being a sacred planet. So this is a continuous work, it's a patient work, and it's a service for those who already managed a certain balance on this. So people who have already worked on this, those people, instead of disturbing themselves with what we have not achieved yet, they should place themselves in the correct position and help others to have this balance by balancing themselves, because those who have done a certain relationship with silence, they do not need external silence to keep it. Those who need external silence, muting, those who need it are those who do not have their silence formed, but if they have it, even with noises around them, it won't disturb them. So if a person is really concentrated and in control of their thoughts, even if someone is picking normal things next to them, that won't affect them at all. You see, so there should be people like that at this stage, and we count on them to avoid muting these conventions that could not be very healthy, especially for for children. Of course, that if this is more or less harmonious, it will influence positively on children. But if you have a child that could have a young soul within, a being that is looking to express themselves, they do not have self-control yet, they don't know their own vehicle yet. There are a lot of children in these conditions, so if you place a child in a very contained environment, artificially contained, that won't be healthy, that won't be good. So we would have to have some harmony in the environment, some harmony in behavior, in gestures, but not a contention, because otherwise certain sectors of service enough work will be closed. Here, for instance, a person said that they're not satisfied with their physical body. This is a very common thing of people not being satisfied with their physical bodies, their external and material part. They cannot control how they eat, and they think this reflects something wrong within them. And they are asking if a diet could help them to place themselves in harmony with this. There are many ways of seeing food. This is like silence in the beginning, so that the body can be in balance, so that the body can resume their balance, because during many lives we abused our bodies so much, we used food in wrong ways, and today our physical bodies can feel what we did in the past. So it's the karma of the body, and the permanent atom gathers physical bodies that reflect this lack of care or imbalance from the past. So there is a kind of diet that we could use here to correct certain things in our body that doctors may think that should be prescribed. This is the diet that we have here. Basically, we don't have animal products besides honey, and this is the only thing of diet here, because it's like silence. As we enter in balance, thinking about silence and thinking about food is one more thought form that is created, is one more complex that will be given to the being. Oh, you're eating, you shouldn't eat this, you should eat that. These are things that people will wear. And of course that a well-organized diet, a careful diet for certain people will be very positive and very necessary. But we cannot base a spiritual center of healing and rescue that is not a center of food and is not a center of silence, but it's a center of rescue and healing. We cannot base a center like this in any kind of diet in any kind of meditation, in any kind of reading, we can't have something fixed because we understand that the energy is working very fastly. So things happen very rapidly, and we would do something very wrong if we fixed on something. If we said, here we're going to do this, this, and this every day, this wouldn't be the nature of the center. So this should be very clear. But about food, we've been through that moment in our evolution in which we must have we should be very careful with food. But when we reach a certain balance in our consciousnesses, transcend certain worries and fights because the thing is done within our beings, then the path of the being is to stop being worried from these food worries of all kinds. So this is a path, and not all are prepared for this. Some people need it. Some people need a formula. Some people need these stereotypes and repeat it every day. Some people need it. And we must have the possibility of attending these people. But at a certain point, these things are a prison for those who need to have a different kind of expansion. So what the center is going through at this moment is this transition. It's going from this contained, but it counts on the development of people that still need rigid things and need formulas. Of course that you will have to make some effort to hear certain conversations. Make that effort, but make that effort knowing where you want to reach, because we don't want to reach somewhere where people are muted. We want it harmonious to be in life, so that we can be inspired by energy and be channels of energy who is changing its degree in voltage and quality all the time, and need prepared channels to manifest itself. But if channels are rigid and have principles that can be changed, then it will go up to a certain point, and very carefully not to break all that, because that shouldn't be broken. The way of being of people, each one has their way of being, and they usually want to impose it to all the others. So this way of being of an individual cannot be broken suddenly, because the being will be this structure. So they should find in the spiritual center the energy for them to become flexible. You see, it's not the energy that will mold them. It's not this. It's an energy for them to be flexible and for them to be attentive and awaken to that which they should be, because they should be something completely different from all others. They are not two beings that are the same. Each being manifests something. This is the work of God. It's a complete and perfect work. And for this, it needs everyone and everything. So of course that if we say we need to reach a point in which we don't worry about food anymore, if not all are in a certain level of inner balance, there will be some disorder in the food. And some people still need some components, some chemical, natural components to keep in balance. So it's indifferent to the food. On the other side, we should think and foresee that there are some people or physical bodies that have certain needs. So here we need to help the menu, we need to go towards those needs, and there's a whole accompaniment in this topic. So this person who is asking about their diet, ask your inner self, your higher self, to indicate and show you, make you perceive what is the best for your body. But you need to do that not too connected to the body, because the body also obeys to our mind, molds to our consciousness. The body molds to our thoughts, and some bodies are very obedient to our ideas. So the body is not something that is not flexible. It can even be obedient. So you need to find that relationship with your body without demanding too much from it, not oppressing it. Some people work a lot even to change the aspect of their bodies. Some people put artificial things. They transform the naturality of their bodies, not to help the body be what it is, so that they can look how they are not really. These things influence the health of the body a lot, and it influences the environment where we are. So we would have, at the same time, we would have to be very flexible at any sign that our bodies gives us, very attentive to see at what point we are in the situation of helping it, healing it, educating it, purifying it, divinizing it, and up to what point we must allow it to express itself, be what it has to be, because it also has a consciousness, a form of seeing things. And while we are in our bodies, we should have this balance, we should keep it balanced. So the way for us to have it is for us not to have a rigid diet and not to be too worried about food beyond the necessary, to have something healthy. And people really do not come here to eat, they come here for other things. So one of the reasons of food here is not to irritate people. So of course that with the agriculture that we have and the consciousness that certain people have within here, we could have an example of food. But people do not come here to have diets. They don't come here for this. So you have an example of diet. But let's say that we can reach some average, a good diet. I don't know if this is the goal here, because if we think too much about it, we won't think about the main thing, which is the goal of you being here. You're in the process. And the inner process is always hampered by any kind of excessive attention that you give to external things. So we need to maintain a certain balance, not about relaxing, but of giving freedom to each one to have that development, because we are not 12 people. We are not a Benedictine monastery where there are only 25 people. It's very easy. If they can be isolated in 25 people, it would be very easy, but it happens that not people can be isolated, and 25 is too little. Nowadays, the need has increased a lot. The number of people to be rescued increased a lot. So doing something for 25, it would have to be something of a very evolutionary degree. They are all in the inner plane. So in the inner plane, you have those groups of entities, groups of monads, groups of beings. Later on, they will form that pyramid of radiation until it reaches the basis, until it reaches the incarnated humanity. So we would have to be careful about these things, but know that we're not here about external things. And external things here, it's very good and necessary for them to be in order, for them to be organized, but they are not the goal for us to be here. External things here should be organized about not disturbing our inner rhythm. The main thing is the inner rhythm of work, of people, of beings. And external things shouldn't impede this, shouldn't disturb this. There are moments in which the energy groups, because it's the energy that sends people here, that attracts people here. When we observe the movement of energy, sometimes the energy gathers people that need the same thing. So when we realize that some people need a certain thing, we need to mold, we need to adapt. If we don't need that anymore, if we are liberated from that evolutionary point. So we need discernment here, and a lot of impersonality. It's necessary to see others more than ourselves. Of course, that for each one of us, it would be much more pleasant to have a different situation at this moment, but we are past this moment to see what is best for us, most important for us. If that corresponds to us, to our point, we should have transcended that by now. Because when we are in service, we are on this planet, available to do what needs to be done. So we need to see what does humanity needs. We should go towards that need, always given the possibility of the individual evolving, but not losing, not really control, but not losing, not stop observing the situation. So when things start to happen that escape your observation, and what you should imprint when it goes through you. And here a person said, when someone cannot quiet their mind yet, will they compromise the environment of the permanent vigil? What if the responsible person for that time cannot reach that silence? Well, each one of us does that vigil at a certain degree. Each one of us has a certain degree of self-control, a certain degree of silence, practice, and each one of us worked up to a certain point in this attitude of vigil. And vigil can remain, and the work can remain, because the average is enough to keep the work. But of that average, there are people who have a relative kind of quietness, and people who are really quiet, and also unquiet people are part of it, people who do not have control on their mind and emotion. But the average of that, the number of people who manage to keep a certain degree of silence there is enough to keep the work, to keep the environment. So those who already have that work within themselves, they will help the vigil, they will sustain the vigil from the point of view of energy. And those who do not have that in a certain point yet, they will be helped to have it by the environment of the vigil. So it's not that those who are quiet shouldn't go there, because those who are unquiet, they will go there to quiet themselves. What we need to see is that if there is enough amount of beings to sustain that in those conditions, to keep the level of quality, this is what we should see. So for us, it's not important to have or what will happen to them. For us, it's important that we personally, we should be as complete as possible, because we're hoping to keep it, and we're hoping those who need alignment and quietness to be in the right place for them to practice that. So everything that is done here is not just for people who are exactly at that level of what we're doing now. Everything that we do here is to attend people who want to get there, people who are seeking that. So everything that we do here is broader, is not just for beings who are at a certain degree of discipline, at a certain degree of pursue. It's for those who want to get there. What we need to see is if those people really want it. Because if they are here and they don't want to be here, this shouldn't happen. Because they will use the energetic place of others, or they will be here useless, just wasting the energy of the environment. The degree of the person is not important in their inner realization. The important thing is their intention, what they are seeking. If they're being sincere, all the rest is solved in the energy. So certain people, when they are preparing on the path, they are very unquiet with details. They are very unquiet that are the solved in the group. But people waste a lot of time with these things. And then when we go on the path, we'll see the group more and more. So it's not important if there are 10 or 15 people who are unquiet and not attentive, but the group, the collective is important. If the collective can work this, if the group is appropriate, if the group allows things at other level to take place, but that are being forwarded, that are being built towards the direction that the person chose. So it's very important in works like this, the intention, people's intention, the degree of decision that people have for transforming. This is what matters the most, because the situation of each one is solved in the collective, and we need to take care of the collective, because these little details will depend on the collective, about a one humanity, planets that are developing in one system. And here a person makes a typical mental question. The will of transcending and going through other levels of consciousness, is it a desire of the ego? Of course, the ego is the one that desires, so those who want to evolve is the ego. Of course, everything that we want to do is the ego. It's enough to say, we want it, so it's the ego that wants it. What ego needs to learn is to want positive evolutionary things. So if someone wants to transcend, it doesn't matter if their soul is leading them to transcend it, or if it's the ego who wants to transcend it. If it's the ego, it's the sign that it's an educated ego, a relative evolutionary ego. So what's wrong with it? The ego is also educated. So the ego wants it or does not want it, but that person still has their ego in those conditions. So if the ego wants them to transcend certain things, it's a good ego. And they will have to go on a path with that ego. They will have other developments to do until they are absorbed. So the will be different. And here, a person who is not managing to make certain transformations. When they used to come here, they would have certain tasks, and now they have the task and she is responsible for that task. So before, they would go to a task, but now she's not only given the task, but she is the responsible for that task. You either evolved a lot and can be responsible for that task, or you are evolving too slowly and you need some impulse. You need some stimulation and you need someone to increase the demand, your demand. It's one of the two. But if it's not good for you, you should say that you would want to go back. Some people are sending a lot of experiences and manifestations that they are having, and some are very interesting, like this one. I noticed that my body was pierced by something that seemed to be like a very thin thread that had life and movement, and the part was outside, floating and moving, and I was trying to pull those threads with my hands, but they wouldn't come, and they were like stuck in my body. You see, that which happens in the subtle levels with our bodies, the treatments that we go through, treatments of energy, transforming treatments in the subtle planes, in the inner planes. This could reflect on the etheric and astral plane, and we can have some impression or physical sign of what is going on. So it's not that the treatment in the subtle level is like what has been described here. What has been described is the reflection in the physical etheric plane of that treatment. But in the physical etheric plane, the image to express that in their body, the rays of energy, they are receiving energy through the processes that exist in the subtle planes. The way of indicating it is showing the person that there are several thin threads in their body. This is how the physical plane can express what is happening in a more internal plane. Is it clear? So not everyone can have the inner perception of the treatment in which they're going through. But if they have this reflection through this vision, they can notice the line of treatment that they're going through. in most cases are all in the inner plane. What is done here in the external plane is the minimum part, the indispensable minimum part for certain physical bodies to maintain orderly with life. But most treatments are all in the inner planes. And most that are treated in the inner planes don't always need to be treated in the physical plane. But some inner treatment, some inner process in the field of healing and rescue of the individual is always taking place. This is all in an unconscious plane, a very inner plane. But sometimes for the instruction of that person, for the comprehension of that person, and so that they can collaborate, sometimes it's shown what is going on so that they can collaborate with that. So someone could need to know that in the inner planes they are being treated, they're being energized, so they can see anything having to do with it, because perhaps they will collaborate a little more in the line of that work. And here, a person who was in the permanent vigil had a very interesting impression. Among the closed tree tops of a morning sky, there were the superior part of a white temple, and between the two towers of that temple that were thin and white, there would be some glass or crystal thing that was like a great chalice upside down, and that tower and that chalice upside down that would form didn't come suddenly, but it was being built with a certain effort. And the person in the vigil had the impression of how the work of their soul, represented by the chalice, was being harmonized and connected to the work of Minajad, represented by the towers of the White Temple. So the towers of the White Temple are the works of Minajad, and the upside-down chalice that was between the towers is the work of their soul that is uniting, merging with the work of Minajad. So you see that for some, this reality is visible. For some, this inner world and this inner life is noticeable, so they can even feel it materially, that they participate in it. Something that we will need to observe is that people who have these experiences, they're not always visionaries, clairvoyants. They are not people who see these things normally. These are graces that anyone could receive. These experiences that are being read here, they shouldn't make us think that we need to have experiences, that we never have these experiences. Those who don't have these experiences consciously, maybe they could be in the same process, in the same way. They just won't see this experience. And when they hear someone's experience, it shouldn't be for you to be encouraged, oh, but this never happens to me. You should see the experience of others so that you can see what is happening to you. They're showing what could be happening to you, although you are not aware of it directly, because grace does not come because we want it. Grace comes in their own way, and God knows how grace should come and to whom. Our position is that we're all children of the one and only, we're all in the one and only, and grace comes for all. This is our position. And if we are in the one and only, if someone had the grace of having an experience, we should be as joyful as they are, because aren't we only one? So if they had it, it's like as if I had had it. So this is the environment that a spiritual center should have. The environment in a spiritual center should be of a lot of unity and not lack of union. A lack of union means if someone is going through something and I am not going through it, I either consider myself better than them, or I consider myself worse because what they're going through is good. This should be dissolved in a spiritual center, because what takes place to someone is the reflection of all. Many people catalyze something that belongs to everyone, and in the spiritual group they catalyze it and they show it. They demonstrate it as if it was belonged to only to them, but it belongs to all. So positive experience belongs to all. It's showing the level of experience that we can have, and is indicating what could be taking place to us at this moment in the inner planes. So this impersonality and unity, this union, is something that we would really have to consolidate within us, especially in our consciousnesses, and with time, it should reflect on our behavior.